views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, it's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to writers, journalists, photographers, videographers, filmmakers, anybody involved in Bronx media, give you a little insight as to what they're thinking about when they go out and put stuff out for you. This evening we are thrilled because we're going to get very serious. We actually have one of our regular guests, David Cruz of the Norwood News. Nice to have you with us. But also Dan Chin from the Campaign Finance Board. And it's kind of the reason David's here is because he wrote an article about the upcoming elections and the Campaign Finance Board. But Dan is here. David and Dan, okay. Dan Cho, I'm sorry, I said your name wrong, is here really to talk about this whole new kind of look at campaign finance, the idea of getting big money out of our elections. And so we're going to give you, Dan, a chance to get started. And let's take a look at what's coming up when we have, I don't know, how many, 37 term-limited city council members? So think about it. We're going to have 35. 35, okay. Elections throughout the city, that's like a lot. So give me an idea of what the CFB is working on.
First, I just want to say thank you for having us on behalf of the
problem.
Campaign Finance Board and our voter engagement initiative NYC Votes. But one key thing, I think, with 35 open seats, we're projecting, and David covered it in his article, up to 500 candidates to register and run for city office, anywhere from mayor, which is an open seat itself, all the way down to the council
That's
districts.
incredible. 500. Now, I haven't counted in every election. We've never had anything like that before.
And in the Bronx, we'll have 5 out of the 8 council offices
Seats
open.
will be open. So what does that, I mean, from administratively, I guess, that'll have to be dealt with. But in terms of giving all of the candidates an opportunity to have a fair shot, what is CFB working on?
And part of why I'm probably here also is this Saturday at the Bronx Library Center, we're going to
Is it on Kingsbridge Road?
Kingsbridge Road, 2 o'clock.
I'm guessing 310 East Kingsbridge Road. Do I have that? Yeah, that just shows how long I've been doing this. Go ahead.
2 o'clock this Saturday, we're giving our New to the CFB, which is an introductory course on dipping your toe into opening a candidate committee and running for office. And so if we expect up to 500 candidates to register, and a portion of that will be from the Bronx and running for the 5 open seats, that we embarked on this tour. We're calling it the 5-Borough Tour. We've already been to Queens, Bronx. We've had 73 attendees complete in those sessions out there, and we already have 73 RSVPs for this Saturday. Wow. And so it's giving them an overview. Do you need to
RSVP, or can you just show up?
We would want you to RSVP off of our website through the Campaign Finance Board's training website. But the key is just to give that first step. Oftentimes candidates don't know where to go first if they want to run for office. And knowing that we have a lot of first-timers, we just want to be out there in the communities, in every borough, and be accessible to the information that they might want.
Let me bring David into the conversation, and then we're going to get back to you about the specifics of the numbers and how candidates can access funding and those kinds of things. David, you follow this stuff, I would say, as much as I do, maybe even more than I do. And I guess maybe it's an obvious question. Do we have a sense that more people are going to want to run for office? I mean, we can use Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as, the example that, big money and, big profiles can be defeated. My sense from talking to people in the Bronx, there are a lot of grassroots people who think this is our opportunity.
Right, and generally speaking, and also putting the politics aside too, I think there is definitely a growing number of people who do have an interest in running for office simply because they know that they actually may have a better financial apparatus this time around. And whenever I'm interviewing candidates who are sort of the underdogs, the main worry is always money. I mean, how do they fund their campaign? How do they really stretch their dollars? And how can they compete with, say, like special interest groups that tend to fund machine-backed candidates? And so this has been like an ongoing issue, especially for the Bronx. Bronx is obviously a very, it's compared to other boroughs. The donors.
We've had the
there.
clubhouse. Let's put it that way.
Right. There's just not too many, heavy, like big, deep-pocketed donors who actually can fund campaigns.
And also, it's hard for insurgents to get noticed. I mean, let's face it. I believe the most well-known insurgent who was not supported by the county organization was Richie Torres. And now, of course, he somewhere along the way will be seen as a clubhouse politician or something.
And also Ocasio-Cortez, too.
Well, of course, no question about it. I was thinking, of course, in the city. I guess just asking you to evaluate what we're about to hear. This is a good thing for CFB to be, at this time, coming out with these kinds of programs for these insurgents, right?
It definitely opens the door for these candidates to have people take their campaign seriously. A lot of these folks are I would say some of them are very well qualified to actually go and run for public office. What they just lack is the money. So this definitely can help them sort of elevate their brand.
Well, we've jumped ahead. Let's define this. Now, there is an 8-to-1 matching program. Why don't we start there and describe how that works and what that might mean for somebody who wants to run?
And that's correct, and we can jump into the numbers, but broadly speaking, as far as the program is concerned, we want to make sure that the candidates that are looking to run for office, that we are here as a city agency, independent, nonpartisan, that will work with every candidate.
So even if they pick up the phone and call, I mean, you can call out the phone number, but of course it's online. You can easily find it. That's one way, hey, I want to run, and you'll get some instruction, as well as, of course, I'm sure there's all these online services.
Yeah. And we're here to empower more New Yorkers to run for office, especially the average citizen. And we're seeing a lot more of that, as you talked about Richie Torres, who was a program participant when he ran for city council the first time.
Right.
And so they get to then now run for a higher, let's say, federal office now. But the numbers speaking to that, with 8-to-1, which is a change from last election cycle. It used to be 6-to-1. Now it's $8 in public funds for every private dollar raised. If you raised only $20,000 in private contributions, that could be matched times 8, yielding.
So you could get $160,000 if you.
Correct.
And
the cap.
And then all of a sudden you show up in the columns. You show up in the listings because you have that kind of funding.
And the cap was just increased with a new local law change. So 8-to-1 was from last year, and the maximum for city council would be $168,000.
Prior to the program, David was asking about what is considered a small dollar donation. Now, again, we really are speaking to Bronx people who say, "Hey, I want in. I'm a community leader. I want to have an opportunity to run." But I don't really have immediate access at this moment to big money. What are the small dollar donations? And then how does that play in helping to fund or launch a campaign?
I think when we think about small dollar donors, it's as little as $10, but even $1 will be matched by the city times 8. But when we read in the newspapers or see it on the debate stage as far as criteria to make a debate, whether it's presidential or local, that anywhere from $175 up to $250 with the new program for public funds, that would be considered a small dollar donation.
Well, I can speak for BronxNet Television, having moderated essentially all of our debates. We never look at the campaign coffers, so to speak. If you're on the ballot, you get to debate on BronxNet. That is a standard thing. So you can talk about all the other elections. I'm just standing up for what we do over here.
I did want to say that sometimes for reporters anyway, when they look at the number of small dollar donations, it sort of is an indicator as to how much broad support they have.
Or where their support is coming
or where
from.
their support is coming from as well. But if you see more small dollar donations, that means that more people will generally have, you may have more broader support than, say, one donation from a PAC that gives you like maybe 2,500, something like that.
And to jump in, the other part of our program is really to empower the voters. We talked about candidates empowering them, but also voters making sure that they have skin in the game on the election, even with a dollar contribution, that the special interests at the city elections we saw were made up only 6% of all the funding for the candidates that ran. And then as opposed to the state elections, the last time we saw, it made up 69%. So really that average, the spread of the average citizen or even just resident giving a donation has helped.
You know, you just mentioned something that I think is fascinating, which I had not considered before we started this dialogue, because you think about the opportunity this provides for candidates. Say they can raise money, you can turn, you know, $20,000 into $160,000 or, you know, less so, and really launch a campaign. But you just brought up the fact that voters themselves, if somebody can't afford the $20,000 and gives, you know, their favorite candidate $10 or $20 or $25, they have what you just called skin in the game, makes them more likely to vote, makes them more likely to talk to their neighbors about voting, et cetera, et cetera. So this has a trickle-down effect that is good for our
democracy.
Our democracy, yeah. You know, I moderated a program the other night, a town hall meeting, and one of the questions that came up, how do we get more people to vote? Ladies and gentlemen, on the Bronx Buzz, we just announced how, right? Give more people an opportunity to make donations.
And I think if the average New Yorker understood that this program exists, so some of the 5-borough tour objectives is to make sure volunteers for candidates want to come out, understand the basic rules, requirements, so that they can be the ambassadors in their communities, even if they're a community board leader, community board member, that they can then share that this program exists with the people that follow their program.
This go-around, and we're almost out of time, but this go-around will, I think for the first time really, and it's taken a few years, underscore the effect of what term limits has brought to the city council, because now we're really going to turn over to city council, and there were suspicions that you're going to bring in people who aren't experienced. On the other hand, people said, well, it'll be great to bring people from the outside. We're about to find out what sort of a city council we have. Thank you, David Cruz, for joining us. Dan Cho, one more time, what's happening on Saturday?
So Saturday, Bronx Library Center, and it's 310 East Kingsbridge Road.
That's confirmed.
2 o'clock. I'll be there to welcome all of our attendees, but we have a great candidate guidance and policy staff that will be giving the candidate seminar. But it's open to everybody, anybody, as long as they can RSVP.
People very concerned about the nature of our democracy. This is what helps keep us strong.
And I checked. I know it's very hot this Saturday, but it is an official New York City cooling center.
So it'll be cool.
Just come for the AC.
Very good. No excuses
anything.
not to be there.
Yeah.
David Cruz, thank you. Dan Cho, thank you. And thank the CFB and thank the Norwood News for what they do. We will come back. Alex Mitchell from the Bronx Times will join us. Don't go away.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Vivo's Do It Yourselfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. That was really a fascinating segment, and it really is going to have implications, I think, for all of us for a very long time. We'll watch how it plays out for the elections in 2021. But right now, I am going to go to the telephone and say good evening to my buddy Alex Mitchell from the Bronx Times. Hello, Alex. How are you?
Thank you for your purchase of New York Yankees season tickets.
I only get that from Alex. I'm well. I have saved my money this year, but I do appreciate your saying that. Anyway, listen. First of all, are you speaking to us from the offices of the Bronx Times? Are you like in your bedroom?
Yes. I'm coming in hot from the newsroom. It is deadline for us right now.
Ah, there you go. So we're catching you at a bad time. But one of the stories you wrote about, and I'm really excited about it, and I know you're excited about it, is World Team Tennis coming to the borough of the Bronx. So why don't you talk about it, then I'm going to fill you in a little background on what I know, having been at BronxNet Television for all these years.
So this is something awesome. When you look at the facility in Crotona Park, the Carrie Lead Center for Tennis and Learning, it is phenomenal. And for World Team Tennis to want to bring or make the Bronx their new home, make that facility their own, Billie Jean King was in the borough a little over a week ago talking about how she wants to bring tennis to the Bronx. She wants to make it accessible. She wants to make it the Bronx's sport, and that is really something cool. I got to speak with her about it, and I'm really excited about what they're doing, and not only are they bringing pro tennis in, but they're bringing top-notch professionals to play the game. So last Sunday, John Isner, who is the #1 ranked American, he played and won the longest ever match in Wimbledon history. He was playing with the Empire on Sunday. Venus Williams is going to be playing Friday night. And short of any rain, Sloane Stephens, who won the U.S. Open a few years ago, she's going to be coming to the Bronx. And it's just so
it's incredible.
Exciting. It's so,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, so when I told you I was going to fill you in on a little background, because I've been here a little while, when the Crotona Park tennis courts opened, we were, I say we in the borough of the Bronx, New York Junior Tennis League, was running tennis tournaments, and I did the play-by-play for that. BronxNet broadcast a number of those, and I did the play-by-play for those for, I don't know, for several years. And then they went about, taking a look at the courts and then built the Carrie Lead Center. So there is a lot of history here, but the fact that world-renowned players like Billie Jean King, of course, is beyond renowned. I mean, she's a virtual icon. Is endorsing it, and Venus Williams is endorsing it by playing here. I think win-win-win. Game, set, match, I guess would be the way to
I like that.
So the big tournament is in August, right?
Yes, the big tournament's in August. Right now, it's regular season play for World Team Tennis. Then they're going to get into the August tournament. And there's something I want to ask you, which I am actually writing an editorial on when it comes to tennis. Would you say that it's the best kept secret in the Bronx?
Wow. We have a lot of secrets. People say that about different restaurants. I mean, I can, you know.
Athletically, I guess.
But you're talking about the Cary Leeds Center?
The Cary Leeds Center and the fact that the Yankees aren't the only pro sports team up here.
Well, that's actually an interesting perspective. You know, maybe it is. I mean, I don't want to make a definitive statement that it is, but certainly to have a facility of that stature and growing stature to be literally in the geographic center of our borough, more people should know about it. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
You know, we have had kids playing tennis, but we've never really made it, you know, like it's never been larger than what it was. Now, I understand for the tournament that will be taking place, I think it's August 16th, is that the date for it? That I think it's numbered 99 and on as a precursor to the U.S. Open, and the people who win those tournaments will get an invitation or automatic bid into the U.S. Open. So it's extraordinary. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And when I spoke with John Isner on Sunday after his match, he was telling me it was his first time playing there, and he couldn't believe what kind of facility it was and how many people showed up. That's the other thing. It's not just that, you know, the tennis is in the Bronx, but the Bronx is getting into the tennis. And there were so many people there.
Listen, Alex, you and I both know when Bronx people get into something or endorse something, you know, it's infectious, and people will come out.
Oh, they make it their own.
Yeah, they'll make it their own, and they'll start to like players. And I have to tell you something else. Because of it's an international borough, tennis is an international sport. When they get people from other countries coming to play, it's just going to be great. Maybe as we get into the summer a little later, we'll bring you back. We'll do a little preview of it or something like that. But thank you for writing about it. Thank you for being as excited as I am about it. And you know, onward and upward. What can I say? What can I tell you? Yours, sir.
Absolutely. Maybe we take the court sometime.
There you go. Let's talk about another issue, a wholly different type of issue. The dialogue about the jail in the Bronx.
Speaking of courts,
you know, the potential for one of the Rikers replacement jails going to Mott Haven. I'll tell you, it is a very thorny issue. With all the dialogue, I don't see at the moment anything happening other than the city just going about its plans. I don't know how you feel about it, but I have not seen or heard the city bend in any way, shape, or form, despite the overwhelming objection from the top to bottom in the Bronx.
Well, Gary, you're absolutely right about that. There hasn't been too much bending. There's been a little bit of negotiation there, agreeing to take the population of it down a little bit. That's part of the phase out of Rikers Island. They're trying to decrease the New York City jail population as a whole. And there's some other things that they're doing, but really the plan is staying as is. It's going to be between 24 and 25 stories. It's going to be the tallest building in the South Bronx. It's what you're going to see when you get off the bridge.
25 stories? You know, I didn't even realize that. Wow. That is unbelievable.
Union Crossing, that big old thing, that's 7 stories, to put it in perspective.
You know what I want to also mention? During the borough president's hearing, he asked the city officials, do you have a plan to where and how you're going to replace the tow pound? You know, that's where they tow cars that need to be towed. And the answer was, no, we don't have a plan for that. Boy, where do they find a neighborhood and says, hey, we're putting a tow pound in your neighborhood? It doesn't matter where in the Bronx it is. There's going to be people upset about it. So it's like there's almost like a trickle-down bit of upsetness.
This is going to cause many types of trickle-downs. You're looking at a neighborhood that when you speak to the people there, when you speak to the people of Diego Beekman Mutual Housing, which is what will immediately surround this area, they're all saying, hey, we've already been through the ringer. It's time to give us investments we need, not just dump another city project here because you can get away with it.
Well, you know, I want to, there's a whole back and forth. The borough president has talked about a better location would be to house it around the courthouse and the Bronx.
That's what the Lippman Commission says.
Well, there is. But, you know, I interviewed Vanessa Gibson, who's the council member of that area. She says, do you know what the traffic is like with all the other activity that we have in that area, the courthouse activity, the lawyers, the people coming in to do legal and court business. She said, you tell me how you're going to reformulate things in that area, which of course includes Yankee games, 81 times a year. You tell me how you're going to reformulate things, and then I'll talk to you about having a new jailhouse in that community. She also doesn't believe that it's realistic because she said the plot of land, some is owned by the city and some is owned by the state. So she said it's going to be a very complicated process to get the land that the borough president is advocating for. I'm just telling you what the dialogue I've heard. That's all I got.
Well, it is complicated, but it is feasible. What
You think
Diaz
it's
wanted
feasible?
to do, not easy, but possible. Let me be clear about that. Or at least that's what the opposition side is taking on this. That's what Diaz is saying, because when he was talking to the mayor's deputy commission on criminal justice, he was asking them, did you guys reach out to the state? Did you have a conversation with the state? And they said they didn't even
bother.
attempt it.
Well, this Alex, I want to move it forward because we're going to run out of time, but this to me is the foundation of a problem. If there was interaction and dialogue and coordination, and that's what they came up with, well, that's it. But if you have no coordination and you just throw your dart at a map and that's where it comes up, and then you say, okay, we're going to have it here. That, especially in the Bronx, that I could use bad language, but that don't fly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I see where you're coming from, and just one more point on that.
Yeah, sure.
What the opposition is doing right now, because the plan does appear to be moving forward. The best way to describe it with a football analogy is they're calling timeout when the other team is taking a knee. They're just doing everything they can to slow it down, but it's not looking good.
It's not working. Yeah. Listen, we only have about a minute, but you were telling me about a producer who is involved in the #1 record. Do I get that right? You got about a minute. Go for it.
All right. My man Amadeus, he is from Washington Avenue. He is a great friend of mine. He just produced on Chris Brown's new album, Indigo, which as of about 2 weeks ago charted #1.
Wow.
So he's an amazing producer. He's worked with so many. He's the drummer for Trey Songz. He works with so many people, and he works with me. He did the theme song for my show, which is coming up, the BX Express.
Which is going to be on BronxNet television.
Of course, it's going to be on BronxNet.
There you go. All right. Last thing, do we have a date for that? When it's going to happen?
The date is soon. Like all great things in life, it requires patience.
All right. Listen, Alex, always a pleasure. Soon we'll have you come in here and we'll tear it up a little bit. And you say hello to all my buddies at the Bronx Times, and we appreciate your time this evening.
I certainly will, Gary. Thank you very much. Let's go Yankees.
All the best. Enjoy. All right, there we go. That's the end of our program, and a very interesting program this evening. It's always interesting. So we will see you Monday night. Monday night on Bronx Talk, we will have Senator Gustavo Rivera, who will review the legislative session from this year and also talk a lot about the prospects for changing health care in New York State. That's all. Good night. Keep buzzing along.